on the agenda to start with, and then I'm going to hand over to our guests from the Environment Agency, if that's okay with everybody, just to change the agenda around a little bit so that they can go and then we can carry on with the rest of the business, if that's all right. Yeah, excellent. Okay, so we go to the agenda. We've got decisions and actions. Any comments on the decisions and actions? Apologies for absence. We have
apologies from Councillor Wilkie, Councillor Pringle, and currently Councillor Deacon.
You're stuck in London. Yeah. Anyone aware of any other apologies? No. All right. Thank you very much.
Oh, Councillor Burney.
Oh, Councillor Burney. Yes. Do we have an update?
No.
I guess at the very least we continue to wish him the best in his recovery. Declarations of interest. I haven't received any. No. Declarations of interest. Public participation. We have one person. Well, it is available for people to dial in, but we have one person online. It looks like at the moment, and we have a guest, for a visitor from the Environment Agency, who's going to give us a presentation in a minute. There aren't any matters referred to the committee that I'm aware of. Right, so if that's all right with everybody, I'm going to hand over to the Environment Agency representative Liam, who's going to talk to us about the, give us an update on the Gade Park River restoration project, whatever you're calling it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Working? Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity for me to come and present around the Gade Park River Restoration Project. My name is Liam Dennis. I'm the project manager from the Environment Agency, and I'm working closely with Ian Ross and Rob Cassidy from Dacorum Borough Council on the scheme. I hope to not take too much of your time. I know this project has been talked about in the rounds for many years, but you know, you'll all have a different understanding of the project. But I hope, for the benefit of those who may not be completely up to speed, I hope to give a bit of a background about the project in the context of the climate and biodiversity crisis, why we're so keen on carrying out this project. I'll go on to explore the opportunities and benefits, the ecological and flood risk benefits of the scheme, and then finish by giving a bit of an update around our programme and our engagement, and then hopefully there'll be some time for questions at the end. So just to go right back to basics, the River Gade is a chalk river. There's only one of around 200 in the whole world. They're fragile and unique ecosystems, and they're so special and support such unique biodiversity that they've been referred to as England's rainforest. It's a freak geological accident going back 100 million years that we're lucky enough to live around these chalk rivers in Hertfordshire and North London. And they are really, truly remarkable rivers. The water that emerges from the chalk aquifer underneath us should be a steady flow of gin clear water, which is pH and temperature neutral, stable, and supports a whole raft of diverse and unique chalk stream biodiversity. Unfortunately, as I said, these are very fragile. So once they're disconnected from the groundwater or they have modifications to them, which is historically done for a number of reasons, these fragile water bodies are permanently damaged and can't sustain the biodiversity that we want to see. This also leads to flooding in groundwater and river flooding, which is exacerbated in a changing climate. It's a real shame that nationally only 14% of our chalk rivers are good ecological status, and there are none in the Herts and North London area that are in good ecological status. The River Gade is one such river which is failing and is currently classed as poor, which flows as it flows through Gade Park. So the issues of Gade Park, the channel has been historically realigned. It flows down an over-wide straight channel. It's clogged with silt and overgrown with unsuitable plants and shows little or no chalk stream characteristics. It's perched. It's been historically realigned as perched above the valley bottom where it would naturally be. and this so it's disconnected from its floodplain and its crucial groundwater which should contribute to its flow. You can see there that the river's clogged there, and on the left is the Environment Agency gauging station and flood gauging weir, which is impassable to fish and is exacerbating issues. So just looking at the opportunities for the scheme, so the project will look to undo the impact of hundreds of years of modification and restore the river back to the original, close to its original location at the valley bottom. That will mean it reconnecting to the groundwater and floodwater. Using natural benefits to restore to the will have a massive help for the health of the river and for flood resilience. We're really keen on delivering this project as it will have significant ecological benefits. Although it's only 400 metres of new channel and new chalk stream, the overall benefits will extend to 6.5 kilometres, which in total is about 57% of the whole Gade. Water quality will be improved by reducing the impact of polluted surface water flows from Leighton Buzzard Road, and we're also exploring additional benefits through biodiversity net gain, as it's relatively new. As well as the considerable ecological benefits, there's massive benefits for Hemel Hempstead residents and visitors. So, like I say, we'll be using natural flood management techniques, which will improve the connectivity to the river environment, both laterally, that's in and out of its banks, and longitudinally, so that's up and downstream. So I'll just show you now. As you'll know, a lot of the park at the moment is underwater. It's inaccessible. So in one of Hertfordshire's most important green spaces and most visited parks, that has a massive impact on the local community it serves. By reconnecting the channel back to its floodplain, those standing waters that we'd be sitting in the low-lying areas of the park will be able to flow away and will reduce the impact of flooding in years to come. Like I say, we visited the park yesterday and it's underwater. Back in July 2020, it was underwater for weeks, nearly months. And that's in July, in one of the busiest periods for the park. This is our flood modelling, which shows a 1% risk of flooding in any year. In addition, it will reduce flood to the Bowls Club, which is a valuable community resource. And this is a key benefit to the scheme. I wanted to show this as well. This is a recent photo of, and I thought it was very interesting. This is the floodwaters in the Bury, which clearly demonstrates how the river wants to flow down its natural path, and this is part of the new realignment, so we'll be using nature and what the river's telling us to inform we've used it to inform the design. So just to give you a bit of an update and timetable before we move on to questions, we're currently working, the Environment Agency is currently delivering putting together its business case, and we're working with our contractors to get into contract. Until these processes are complete, there's a risk that the project will not be completed this year, but the designs are largely complete. Although we have some ground investigations to carry out, some minor ground investigations, we've got funding for next year, and whilst we have some planning conditions to discharge and we're continually monitoring for water vols in the area, all of the other permissions and permits are in place to deliver next financial year. Like I say, we've got the funding, so we can finally look to get this important project, delivered next year. In terms of timescales, all going well. If we get into contract with our contractors and we complete our full business case, we would be looking for pre-construction works in May, including site setup and some pre-construction surveys and other works. And the programme would be take around 6 to 7 months in total. We're looking to work with the Dacorum Borough Council and our contractors to devise a programme of works that minimise disruptions to park users. especially over the busy summer months. So avoiding impact to park events and maintaining as much of the park open as possible during the construction. I think it's important to note that the window for delivery is rather short in any given year. You can see it's completely underwater at the moment, so makes construction very difficult. Some disruption will be felt in the park, but we need to really work closely with Dacorum Borough Council to communicate the long-term benefits for people and wildlife in this scheme. Engagement's really key for that. So as you probably will know, we've had extensive engagement so far, and the response has been really overwhelmingly positive. We'll have a number of events going towards as we ramp up towards construction in the next few months, and we'll be working with Dacorum to share our detailed programme when things will be carried out. So this is an image of a visualisation of the new river, which will be realigned back to its more natural position. It will be a real feature of the park, bringing people closer to nature. This project has been years in the making, as I say, and contributes significant environmental and flood risk benefits. I won't take too much of your time, but just kind of open up the floor to questions, I guess.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming in. Over to questions. Yes.
And what's happening with the White Bridge? Is this kind of like White Bridge onwards, or?
Yeah, that's right. So the scheme, during the feasibility study of the scheme, the White Bridge was deemed a significant heritage asset, and the scheme is so the White Bridge is outside of the project area. So the offtake from the existing channel will be just downstream of the White Bridge.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Whiteley.
Yeah, I'm quite interested in what Councillor Mitchell asked, because we use park a lot. It's actually, I don't think people mind it too much. It's quite a feature, seeing how big the flood is and what have you. And certainly the kids and the dogs don't mind. It's extra paddling. However, my serious point is that you can currently see where the floodwater is coming through between the lane and the White Bridge. And the floodwater is coming through before the White Bridge. If you're constructing something which follows the natural course of the river, then I would have thought you would have had to move the bridge, because there won't be any water going under it, surely. White Bridge. That's probably not a question for you to answer, but clearly it's so clearly demonstrated at the moment where the river has broken its banks that, as you quite rightly pointed out, in many places you can see where it's following the natural course of the river. And we're going to have our lovely White Bridge with no water going under it.
The channel, the water will still flow through the existing channel from upstream of the White Bridge. It will come under the White Bridge.
Perhaps put the map up again.
Yeah,
the one with the two floodplains on it, and then we can show.
I think that shows it.
That's the other bit of it. Do we have? Because you had that yesterday when we did the visit.
It's downstream. Let me find.
Because it goes through the bridge and then it's taken away after it goes through the bridge. It's then taken into the new
But my
bit.
concern is that in flood times, it's already breaking the banks up,
So
on the other side.
I could answer this politically, but I'm not going to. I'm going to ask, could one of the officers just explain that this something, because this decision was taken quite a while ago, wasn't it? And the decision of...
But it's within your gift to change it if you wish.
Well,
Surely.
it's not at the moment because of the, I mean, you can, if I said to you, actually, can we, we're a new administration and we want to change it, we want to address the floodplain beforehand. What's your answer?
I would say that we would happily work with you on phase 2 of the project.
Okay, phase 2.
But
That's a
whether
very
there would be
answer.
would there be funding available to do so, it would be another question.
I
I mean, there's a lot of work, technical work, and lots of,
I think my understanding is we're so far down the road with this project that was decided quite a long time ago, because it takes a long time to get it up and running, the benefit, and we have to do it in this window because of funding, because the funding might not be available next year. This is my understanding from the briefing yesterday. And therefore, we're not saying no to the bit before the bridge, but, and again, this is me just my understanding of the thing.
Sorry, I'm just saying that what's happened though this year has really highlighted
Yes.
whether that was the right.
But decisions were taken a couple of years ago, not to disrupt the White Bridge. So that's where we are. But we'll take your thoughts, and I'm sure that if money and opportunity comes up, then a phase 2 will be looked at. Yes, sorry, Councillor Timmis.
Two questions actually. One is about the Gade, and is there anything being done upstream in Great Gadsden and through Leighton Buzzard Road beside there before it gets to Gade, to the Gade Bridge and Park?
We're always looking for to work with landowners who want to improve, riparian owners that want to improve the river. I'm not aware of any projects at the moment, but we do also to them.
It is very congested, the actual river. There's one area which is full of bulrushes, and a bit further up, it's very overgrown, shall we say, a lot of water, and it's flooding. So I just wondered, it seems if you've got one bit that's nice, you need to really be working constantly back to get the whole thing flowing properly.
Like I say, it's all a process. We've got to start somewhere, and we want to work with riparian owners and landowners to improve all our chalk rivers across the Herts and Northumberland area.
So you're putting that out there, are you? That
Yeah, we work with our catchment partners and other different organisations across the area to support landowners to deliver projects.
I'll pass that on to Great Gadsden Parish Council.
And if you know any riparian owners or landowners that want some advice or want to, any local councils that want advice about how to improve their rivers, get in touch.
So can we send if you could let Layla have the right contact details for the person to whom we should send our questions, and then we'll make sure that's circulated to everyone on the committee. Yes, and your second question. Yes, you may. I've noted you, but
as well as the Gade, which has got a lot of attention, but probably because it runs through there's also the Ver, which has had quite a lot of work done on it by St Albans District Council, with the Environment Agency, as far as the M1, and then it goes on up through Markyate, which is a part of a ward that I represent. Right. And it is flooded at the moment into the fields, and we also have, unfortunately, Thames water, waste disposal area, and that is probably flooding into it at the moment, has done before. So I just wondered, are you looking at other streams? And there's the Bullbourne in Berkhamsted. I don't know how much work's been done with that. They're all chalk streams.
They are. So I manage a project on the Ver as well, which we're working with St Albans District Council on through Verulanian Park. And we've got a number of other projects. We work closely with the Valley Society as well, working with them on the Ver. We have limited resources, and I think this is one of the largest environmental and river restoration projects in the country at the moment that you have in Dacorum. We probably need to do a lot more, and we wish, we want to work with as many partners as we possibly can to do more. So yeah, we look at opportunities as they come up. This, like I say, this has been many years in the making, the actual Gade Bridge Park project, and it's a really, really important project because it encompasses a number of different benefits, and that's why I suppose this all coming together means that it's more deliverable than other projects. But there's a whole range of interventions, big and small, that we can do on our rivers, and we can support different actors and agencies into improving our river. But yeah, I completely agree with you. There's a lot to be done, and we need to work together to do it.
Sorry, just on the River Bullbourne, there is a much smaller scale project, but Rob Cassidy from my team is doing some work with Affinity Water and Berkhamsted Town Council to look at some improvements on the River Bullbourne as well. So there is some work being done there as well.
We carried out a great project on Boxmoor back in 2017. It was really, it's looking really great, and yeah, it was nationally recognised in numerous awards, and people really got behind it. So we hope to do the same in Gade Park.
And that's got an information board that you can see what the river was like before and after. So if we did something similar like that in Gade Park, that would certainly help advertise what we've done. I'm going to go Councillor England because I think he had his hand up just before Councillor Gale.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, just to address this conversation about whether to have done the north as well as the south, I don't want to embarrass the Environment Agency, but there is the matter of the water gauging station, which I think is recognised that is blocking fish, and that's a real no-no from a sort of doing things the right way position. I mean, in 2021, I was sitting on your side of the table arguing that we should do a bigger project, and because that just seemed to be the thing that you would do if you were honouring the course of the river. But I can now see that actually what we're really doing is we're dealing with the problem of that gauging station, and we're dealing with the urban road runoff, which is coming down Galley Hill, and it's particularly an urban problem, and that does need to be done. So on balance, I've become somebody who was a bit more of a purist, but is now a little bit more pragmatic.
Thank you. Councillor Gale.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I was late and I missed the first part of the presentation. It looks like a great project to move the river to its original course. But I've got two questions just for my own interest, perhaps. One is, I'm interested in how long it takes naturally a river to change course, because I understood that rivers don't have a set course, and over time they change their course naturally anyway. That's the first question. The other question is not related to that. The other question is, I see that the river starts off towards the edge of the park, and then in the new version it's going to go in the centre of the park. What are the safety implications of that, for like people playing in the park and children drowning and things like that? I just wondered if there was any consideration of that.
Sure. So on your first point, rivers are very dynamic systems, but it depends very much on the type of river. So chalk rivers have typically very low gradient, very slow moving, and are fed from groundwater. So once you modify a chalk river, it has very little velocity in order to change itself. So the historic modifications that you've seen on our rivers, on most of our chalk rivers, putting in weirs, straightening, realigning, all those sorts of things will be there permanently and will cause permanent damage until you actually physically change them. And we work on natural processes. We want to restore the natural processes of the chalk rivers so that they'll be able to support the types of ecosystems and habitats that they naturally would. So the Gade will be in a sorry state forever until we do something. And so there really isn't a do nothing option. With regard to your second question, the channels.
Well, that wasn't quite the question. I mean, I was just curious to know, left alone, how long does it take this kind of river to change course naturally?
It will never change course.
So I think one thing that you mentioned yesterday that you haven't mentioned this evening was reconnecting it with the source, sort of in the far right-hand corner. So when it comes in, you're going to go, because it comes under a pipe under the park at the moment, but my understanding from what you said yesterday, if I've understood you, is that you'll be tapping from that pipe and feeding the river, whereas at the moment it's not being fed from the spring.
So chalk rivers should get around 75% of their flow from the aquifer. If you take, which is it's like a sponge underneath our feet, which when it rains during when it's wet, and it holds that water and expels the water when it gets to dry. So there should be a kind of solid, consistent flow of water. If you take that water out, if you move the channel from the groundwater to a perched position, you haven't got a chalk river anymore. You've got a chute. You've got a canal of water. So that's why we want to put it back into as close to the groundwater as possible. And then what you were referring to, at the moment, a lot of the springs and the sources of the Gade in this area are just collected and piped into the flood relief channel. So that beautifully filtered clear water is just being wasted and pushed downstream. So as part of that project, we'll have an outflow in the park, so that will increase the flow, and that will make the river more resilient during low flow events and when our temperature gets hotter. So yeah, I don't know if that answers.
And would it be helpful if people wanted to have an understanding of what it would look like before and after if they went down to Boxmoor and had a look at the picture there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or I can even take a photo and share it. If that's
So if you go to Boxmoor, there's a video, there's a YouTube video online which I can share as well, which shows the dead straight channel, which was just dead straight to feed the canal in that area. And then just with some minor interventions, just re-meandering, you instantly get some different velocities in the channel, and you get the clean gravels because the silt and sediment aren't settling on the bottom. And with clean gravels, you get vertebrates. With vertebrates, you get fish, and with fish, you get all sorts of habitats and ecosystems. And then it's much easier for the river itself to sustain itself, and it's a much more attractive and pleasant river for people and wildlife.
I think that would be helpful if we could share. I know I've got a couple more questions, but something on safety as well. I mean, the river there looks quite shallow and narrow, but a point about safety. I guess it must be similar to the safety issues we have now with the river.
So you've still got a channel which is open. The new channel will be in the centre of the park. Most of the channel will have planting, so suitable chalk river species that we're going to be planting up and protecting to allow it to establish. So most of the channel that will form a natural barrier for most of the channel. We will have a beach area, so that's a gravel beach area, which will be a sacrificial, what we call a sort of sacrificial area, which will allow access for children and dogs to paddle in. The River Gade is never going to be, it's never a hugely fast-flowing river, but it's a part of the natural environment. It will have its natural.
And there'll be two new bridges to cross as well.
Two new bridges to cross, and paths that will lead, it will be away from the river edge as well.
Thank you. Does that
Thank you very much. That's very helpful.
Right, Councillor Walker and then Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned water quality. Does the water quality vary from the top where the water comes out the ground to when it gets to the end of it, where it's at the end of the river? And does it vary during the year? Summer, winter? Because we're doing this work down here to preserve water quality. If the water's not much good getting to it, we're not cleaning it up, are we?
Yeah, I mean, water quality is a really tricky issue. This project is not primarily a water quality project. It will have water quality benefits in that we will be reconnecting the springs that I said into the channel, which will have an improvement on water quality. And we'll also be diverting some of the surface water runoff from the Leighton Buzzard Road. Water quality is really tricky issue because you've got numerous point source pollutions across a very large area to deal with numerous actors and individuals and companies and all different sorts of people contributing to that issue. This project will have a benefit, but it won't be it won't be a sort of expression a silver bullet for water quality. We will look to our partners and we will support our partners with other water quality projects, sustainable urban drainage, and those sorts of things. If we can support people, we'd be really happy to. Water quality isn't the biggest issue on the Gade. I know it is an issue, but actual flow, it's failing, I think. Don't quote me, I'll have to dig it out and I'll from the last WFD classification. It's failing for fish and flow. So fish passage and flow. So that's obstruction has a big impact on flow. So we're also working with Affinity to reduce the amount of water taken from the chalk streams. And then these interventions that I've been describing, putting the spring flow back into the channel, making the channel more suitable size for the flow it receives, making the channel more resilient will all benefit that for the overall health of the channel.
Thank you. I was just going to say, I'll just take this as the last question because I'll take the last 3 questions, the last 3 hands, just because of time constraints, because we've got quite a big agenda. So Councillor Anderson, Councillor Whitelow, and then Councillor Mitchell. And then we'll...
Excuse me, Chair, this is going to be kind of borderline question, borderline observation. If you're permitted to
Observations are fine. This is not main council, so we're allowed to make comments here.
Absolutely, thank you, Chair. It's also going to sound a little bit like what the Romans done for us. I support this project 100%. It's a really good project. I did spend some years as a cabinet member trying to support the project and do what council could to support it. And I'd be really pleased to see it happen. But there are some issues which I really hope, which I've flagged up on the site visit, which I was very grateful for yesterday, but I think need to be aired this evening as well. One is particularly the level of disruption that will be caused whilst this work is being done. We had hoped that it could be done between March and May, so you avoid winter and you avoid the hotter months when people want to come out and use the park. It became obvious during the meeting yesterday that wasn't going to be possible, and I think that's a little disappointing. And if anything can be done to accelerate the work in that golden window, I for one would certainly welcome it. And I'm sure the council would, because we are the ones that are going to get criticism from the public about the level of disruption in the park. The issue to do with screening the main road, I think was certainly made clear yesterday that is the council's responsibility. I hope we can find some solution that will stop young children and dogs from running onto quite a high-speed road, an attractive one that doesn't turn the road into a tunnel, at the same time protects both road users and park users. I'm another one that would rather we were able to do the whole park in one go, but I'm hoping that if we can make this work, that we could find the funding down the track to do this, the northern half of the park. My biggest issue, though, apart from being able to squeeze the bridge, the river and the bridge between the bowls club and the car park, which is going to be quite tricky, but all the works planning's been done to try and achieve it, is reversing the short section of river right at the southern edge of the park, so that it's great that the new river goes straight on. It's not doing a right angle in the Berry Gardens. But the real issue will be using the existing river as an overflow towards the storm drain that goes under Hemel Hempstead and comes out in the Grand Union Canal at King's Langley. It's using that on that diagram you can see there, it's effectively reversing the existing flow of the river over more than just 5-10 metres. It's a good 25-30 metres. I'm just slightly worried as to whether that can work in practice. But having said all these issues, I'm a firm supporter of this project, Chair, and I really welcome and I hope it can happen as soon as possible, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Councillor Anderson. So, did you? I don't think that was more of a.
I think we covered a lot of the points yesterday. Yeah. If you do want further, if you have any further questions, just let me know.
Councillor Whiteley.
I'm just rather curious about the comments about lack of fish, because if you're going in the water gardens, there are masses of fish, but large and small. And if we've got fish there, the water's coming down from the park. Why do you think there is no fish in the Gade Park section of the river?
I couldn't tell you in a lot of detail, but probably the amount of fish in any water body is driven by the longitudinal connections. So as long as there's not any barriers, and I don't know whether the upstream and downstream barriers are around Gade Bridge. Our gauging station is a barrier to the Gade Bridge Park area. So our gauging station at the moment is where you can see that dot there. So removing that will have a positive impact to fish upstream, and also silt and sediment on the channel bed, which restricts the invertebrates that fish feed on, is also a key driver for the amount of fish. So We do regular monitoring and surveying on all our chalk streams to maintain a good understanding of the health of them. So I couldn't tell you exactly what the drivers are in this area, but
any idea what kind of fish there would be? I mean, there's hundreds of them, and they're sort of this size to about this size.
quite possibly brown trout. If that's a chalk stream characteristic fish.
But the water gardens is post restoration as well, because that's a lot of work went into that, and it.
They won't be worth catching though, because they'll be bottom feeders and then.
Yeah, there might be a lot of unsuitable types of species as well that will thrive in that area. So there might be, yeah, I don't know, there might be.
Thank you.
Councillor Mitchell, take your questions, the last one.
The residents of Pickett's End are concerned that the work may cause flooding to their area. You know, the water that's coming down from the upper Gade area. So they previously experienced quite a lot of flooding. So I have a friend who's got a paddock and it used to flood regularly. It's now not flooding, and she's concerned it's going to revert back.
I can categorically say that nothing that the Environment Agency would be doing would increase flood risk to any properties. It would be a complete red line. All of our proposals have been modelled, and those models have been reviewed and checked by an independent national team to make sure that there's no increase in flood risk at all. So there will be no increase in flood risk to any properties.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. So I've just to sum up, I've recorded that there is, because I haven't heard anything to the contrary, there's quite a strong, I think I can say there's quite a strong feeling from the committee that the powers that be should look at what one should now call phase 2, so the bit north of the river, so that we can extend the benefits of doing this. But there's support for the project, so thank you very much for coming in to do that. And that we've reminded the Environment Agency, who already knows, I mean, you're one person calling the Environment Agency, that there are other rivers in Decorum that might also want some attention, and you said that you can at least give us a contact detail for that. You'll share a YouTube video link, and I will take a photo of this little infographic on Boxmoor, which is my patch. And I think if we can have a couple of those, 2, 3, 4 of those in Cambridge Park. And I know we talked about yesterday the comms, which was good. So I think, is there any other points that I've sort of missed in terms of the big strategic points that we want to feed back from this committee? Okay, well, thank you very much for your questions. Thank you very much for coming in. And I think if we could have a light touch, doesn't have to be, but a light touch update on how the project's going through the summer, that'd be great. And maybe another site visit, we can invite everybody down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
I'll send an information to you and then you can send it to me and I'll share it.
Okay. Yeah. Great.
Brilliant. Right, and just because I don't have my trusty deputy chair here, so do bear with me if you might just need to be a little bit more assertive with your hands. Feel free to say, Chair, I've been waiting 5 minutes. I will not be offended. But I'm just very engrossed in the conversation, so I might not be offended. So yes. Okay. Oh, Lenny's going to keep a look out as well. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye. Right. So it was straight into the Q3 quarterly, not too many Qs, budget monitoring report. 6. Who's that? Thanks, Claire.
Hello. So yes, so the general fund is reporting a surplus at Q3 of £236,000, a reduction from £536,000 from Q2. The main movements for strategic planning and environment are neighbourhood operations, an increase in staffing costs of £175,000, additional tree works across the borough of £80,000, repairs and maintenance to fleet, £52,000, and then for place services, we've got a reduction in pressure of £50,000 on planning income and a reduction in forecast on interim staffing of around £115,000. For the capital programme, we've got some slippage reported for the waste transfer site, the fleet replacement programme, and works at Chickerfield Car Park.
Any questions on this report? High level figures at the moment. We've just come out of the budget review, haven't we? So we're probably up to here with figures, but I think quite self-explanatory then, and thank you very much for that. Thank you. Planning and Development and Regeneration Report.
Thank you, that's me. So just going through the report, the DM performance, the minors and others are measuring against a 70% target. So both of them are exceeding that on each of those months. And you can tell then around paragraph 1.3, it shows that there's an 82% in total against that 70% target. So that's really good news and good performance. In terms of other items, just to update, the government opened a planning skills fund pot of money, and we were successful as one of the 180 authorities across the country to be awarded some money towards that. So we have 35,000.
Sorry.
It's a little bit tight in that corner, to be fair.
We haven't got a presentation on health and safety coming.
Yeah.
I think it was the weight distribution of the coats.
So, yes.
So we have £35,000 awarded to Decorum, and that is looking at working through the queue of applications to the backlog created around the habitat regulation assessment. So we are using our internal resources and we are using that money to pay for overtime. So we've got through 80 cases already, and just to give you a warning, it may mean that as we're putting through cases that have been in the system for a while, some older cases, our stats for next quarter may come down slightly in terms of that positioning. And then in terms of enforcement, we have priority site visit cases similar to last quarter, around 32% against 100% target, which is obviously really low. And I know you've gone through this in quite a lot of detail at the scrutiny. So we've now got those 2 interim positions filled, and really happy to be able to say that any new cases in 2024, we've gone out on site visits within time. So they're not showing in this quarter's stats, but should do then into that next one of quarter 4. And just while we're going through that backlog with enforcement cases, the business as usual is happening. So in terms of paragraph 1.9, you can see there that 4 formal notices were served in quarter 3. So although we still have a queue of cases built up throughout COVID, as well as now tricky cases with the habitat regs, we are kind of still going through and taking out that enforcement work. The affordable housing and the retail properties, we will have data on that. The affordable housing in quarter 1 of the kind of, or I don't know if it will be ready by the end of quarter 4. I'll have to pick up with the team on that, but it's an annual target. And then just to give you a bit of an update on the suitable alternative natural green space. So we have a few updates into here. Just want to draw your attention to paragraph 1.13. You can see that Ian Ross and myself went to Chipperfield Parish Council, and that Ian is going back on the 12th of March and will continue to kind of go back to those meetings, whether it's bi-monthly, etc., as agreed with the Parish Council. And the topic of that engagement is very much around the Secretary of State applications, progress on those, and also any kind of further investigations around the pond. So in terms of other SANG matters, the roles that will sit within the delivery area, so the clean, safe and green area to deliver these SANGs, will be going out to advert quite soon. And we are starting to see planning applications for suitable alternative natural green space. So we have 2 pending consideration, and I've been made aware by another developer that we're likely to receive another one at some point in the future. So they are pending consideration, and we're still going through all of the consultation, etc., on those. So that's all for me to flag. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions on that report? You answered the only one that I had, which is about the enforcement. So thank you for the update, because as you say, we've been talking about it a lot. So I think the committee over time will expect to see that have an upturn next time. Right, thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, the next one is the Neighbourhood Services Performance Report. Please.
Thank you, Chair. So, councillors, you may have noticed that the positive trends on some of the performance indicators in terms of recycling rates. We do not have the figures for quarter 3, but we do have figures for quarter 2, which indicates an increase on recycling. Also, similarly, a decrease on residual waste collection, which again, it's a good sign in relation to the direction of travel that we want to do in reducing residual waste. Reports of missed bins as well are reporting clearly positively in the right direction of decreasing from previous year, and That's obviously we want to increase the performance in relation to have less missed bins, which obviously this is the direction of travel we're following. And also the fly tip collections as well in relation to previous years, which are increasing, and that is something that is a trend, is a national trend, is not just in Dacorum, and we are obviously experiencing this as well here.
Excuse me, sorry, could you just speak up a little
Sorry,
bit?
councillor. Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So in terms of the graffiti removal, we have again a positive trend in having a decrease in incidences, and this likely explanation of this reduced number of incidents is because there's been pilots working with the Hertfordshire Police and the council working together to reduce the incidence of graffiti. It seems to be effective by looking at the indicators and the trends. And finally, the number of public space protection order and litter fixed penalties, again, they're decreasing, and the high-risk food inspections as well is pretty much going on trend and recovering from the COVID backlog. With regards to key projects, we are working closely with the Hearts Waste Partnership for a number of projects. There is obviously the new government guidance in terms of simpler recycling that we are working together with Hertfordshire and our colleagues in responding to government proposals and also assessing the impact of this guidance for us in Dacorum. And our services are actually quite well ahead compared to other councils, and we're already in a position where we are actually responding to government guidance without having a massive impact, because we're already doing what they're recommending as good guidance, which is a good thing to know. We also had a positive feedback from Environment Agency. They had an audit of a waste transfer site, and they stated that it's one of the best run sites that they ever reviewed. So that's a really good feedback for us. We are progressing very well as well with the review of the contract for the arts contract for our trees and tree management. And we're reviewing also how we manage our database to make sure that then we can work with the contractors that will be hopefully with us in May to work far more effectively in relation to tree management. You heard all about the River Gade's restoration, and also good news in relation to partnership working. We're working very closely with some organisations in the third sector, like, for example, Sunnyside, and we are working together to entry Angling in Bloom, which again would be a really good recognition of the good work that's happening in Dacorum in relation to horticulture and what we're doing, but also doing other projects that gives us good social values as well. They're working with us for planting schemes or litter picking, but also undertaking a child restoration project with restoring some signs, road signs, working with people with disabilities and learning disabilities. So it's a really lovely project. You will see the progress of the playground tender and the verge hardening through Ian's presentations in a minute. We also done a waste dog bin mapping exercise, which will help us to then analyse where the bins provision is and actually question whether we have the right bins in the right places, and that again will help us to be probably more effective and respond to needs rather than anything else. So that's in a nutshell, Chair.
Thank you. I have a question on this as well, but I'm going to go to the floor first, Councillor Timmis.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have two questions. One is on one of my favourite subjects, fly tips. I did attend a conference, an online conference about fly tipping and waste and littering online recently. And whilst you've achieved a very good, I think, number of clearances of fly tips, it seems to me that is costing a lot of money, and we should be doing something more or better to prevent fly tipping, because every time you have to pick up a fly tip, it costs a lot of money. And my other issue, although this may have changed since I last went on to the website to report a fly tip, is that it's very difficult to get the map to the area that I represent, which is Market. It tends to be focused on the Hemel area. So I don't know whether that's me or whether it's the fact that the map is really quite difficult to negotiate to get into an area out in the rural areas. So that's one thing, that's about the fly tipping. The other issues that you reported is about your, let me just get down to it, waste and dog bin mapping exercise. And the expression to make sure we have the right bins in the right place, to me, is who makes that decision? Because, you know, if you're making the decision, as I'm finding certain decisions tend to be made by, as they call desk decisions, I would think, certainly in my area, which is quite rural, and I would think a lot of other areas, that actually there are certain areas that we know that we need bins. There are areas where dogs are walked regularly and there are no bins, and so you will get more dog poo left and less, less ability to get people to actually bin the dog poo. And I know they can take it home, and I think people are less inclined to do that, but if there's a bin within a reasonable area of a dog walking area, people are more likely to bin it. So I just think that statement, bins in the right place, how do you make that decision?
So we, as it says, we've mapped all the bins. Some of them are in what I call obscure locations. Some of them are in quite dangerous locations. So we've got bins that are on national speed limit roads where staff are stopping and then having to get out of the van. So it's that kind of thing we want to address. But we're putting together an engagement programme. So as part of that, when we come to start looking, work area by area, is to engage with yourselves, parish councils, town councils, local residents. But we also want to engage with our own clean, safe and green staff that are the ones that are out there emptying the bins on a daily basis. And it's starting to look at if you've got a bin that's constantly full, do we need to become more frequently? If you've got a bin that's never got anything in it, do we need the bin? Can we move it somewhere else? It's all that part of that process. So, but yes, there will be engagement.
So you will consult.
Yeah, it's not something I'm going to sit at a desk and do. It's definitely involving staff. It's involving residents. It's involving parish councils and things like that. So.
Because, and it's obviously from what you say, it's to do with health and safety of staff. Because, I mean, again, we have A5, 1A3 now, and we have some bins along there.
Yeah.
But they're very necessary bins.
No, it's not to say, but there are ones. I met with Councillor Walker with Bovingdon. There is one on a corner on a high-speed road. So we're looking at where we can relocate that to a more better location, but also one that's still accessible by local people who are walking the dog as well, rather than having nothing at all. So this is not necessarily about reducing numbers of bins. It's about, as I say, making sure we've got it in the right place.
Is this about dog poo?
Yes. Yes, so just step in.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Whitelow then.
Okay, I was just following from that.
Councillor Walker was first, then Councillor Whitelow, and then, because I've got something to say about dog poo as well.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just going on from the meeting that we had, I mean, there's also, if I remember correctly, duplication where you have a dog bin next to a refuse bin. And you cannot collect, somebody who's not qualified, cannot collect from a dog bin, but they can collect from the refuse bin. And combining two into one can make things a lot easier for everybody, which stops duplication, stops two visits to one site.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Whitelow.
I'm really pleased that you are going to consult with the ward councillors, because we're the ones who are in the firing line when residents make us aware of issues with regard to them, and very happy to help you with your consultation.
I think you speak for all of us actually, but the people have mentioned that, so thank you. Councillor Mitchell.
I've been aware of the BIM review for some time and speaking to Chris Conley about it. He's very approachable and does want to definitely engage with councillors and residents. So that's a very definite question that I'm going from him. Our bin's on hold. So if there's currently an area that needs a bin, I'm under the impression that we can't get a bin for it. And obviously this review is going to take a long time. I'm not sure when they're going to get to my ward. So
I will check with Chris tomorrow. So
it would be helpful
yeah,
if we
yeah.
know that there's an area that needs a bin, that we could have one.
Yeah.
That would be helpful. Councillor Whiteley.
Different topic, flight
So I just wanted to stick on bins and then we'll go, because we haven't answered Councillor Timothy's fly tipping question yet. So if I may, so I've just got two things that I wanted to say about that. I mentioned it in full council. I think that none of this takes away the fact that you should be a responsible dog owner. There is no reason for putting a bag of poo, dog poo. There's no reason for not picking up your poo. There's no reason for putting a poo bag on the floor when there isn't a bin, just to make a point. So my first question on that is, who is responsible? So it is linked to fly tipping, but it is fly tipping of dog poo. So where the Canal and Riverside Trust has done away with their bins, in Boxmoor people have now started putting their poo bags where the bin used to be, because they're really smart and clever people. Is it the Canal and Riverside Trust's responsibility to deal with that fly tipping? So yeah, so that's, well, it's not good, but it's good. And then the other thing, I just wanted to make a point that some of you know I have a shop in the Old Town. The biggest dog ever left a massive load of poo right outside the shop that I had to clean, otherwise the poor people wouldn't be able to come in. And there is a bin next to my shop, like a metre away. So we are doing all of the right things, but this is my point about it. It does not take away the responsibility of dog owners. And I'm a dog owner myself, so thank you. Thank you, video, for recording that. Councillor Whiteley.
Sorry, Chairman, with your indulgence, if I can refer you back to the big pile of dog poo. Are you sure it was a dog poo? Because we've had an instance in Woodall Farm where somebody is routinely defecating in a public area, and who do we tell about that? And
I don't know. I mean, it was right in the middle of the pavement, and I'm not a vet or a doctor. I'm pretty sure it was dog poo. I'm very glad that as a food establishment I have blue gloves. That's what I'm saying. But I used to that. Too much detail. I do apologise, but I don't believe. I think if a human was going to defecate, they wouldn't have defecated right in the middle of the pavement. They probably would have done it down an alleyway. I don't know. It's not something I do very regularly.
I can't remember the exact location. It certainly wasn't hidden away. There's even toilet paper there. So Ian, who do we go to for something like that?
Me, unfortunately.
So that would be taken as a serious request.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
because clearly it's not pleasant. But my original, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to hold this really, was about fly tipping. And one, with regard to the fly tipping, you said there had been a slight increase. Do we is there a breakdown of any particular kind of fly tipping that has increased? And my other one about fly tipping is it's really good when you see in newspapers and the press releases when we massively fine fly tippers, which match. Do we receive those fines, or does it go into the court system? Because I would have thought if our officers had gone to the effort of identifying fly tippers, and we set up the apparatus and so on, we should get the proceeds of the fines back, and that should be ploughed back into our finances specifically for fly tipping. It's a bit like proceeds of crime at the moment. The fines, the Crown Prosecution Service can levy. And I'm sure Jonathan will correct me, but it doesn't come back to us. It doesn't come back. So if there's a fraud committed in Hertfordshire that Trading Standards picks up, the amount that is recovered doesn't then get given back to Hertfordshire because it was the Hertfordshire resident that was.
I do remember that Emma, the officer, did answer this. I can't remember what the answer was, but I think do Do you know the answers?
I seem to remember that actually she confirmed that we do receive.
We get our costs back,
do
but I
receive-
don't think we
we
get
get the
the
costs
officer
back.
time back, do we?
Well, no, the
No.
officer, but
So we do get our physical, we do get our legal costs reimbursed, but we can maybe ask Emma just to confirm that
yes.
in writing, if that's all right, just to add it to our list of things that we're going to circulate, like the video and things like that. Could we go back to Councillor Timmis's question though, which was what if anything are we doing to prevent and deter people from fly tipping?
So prevention is quite difficult because actually a lot of the people, well, we obviously have a wide range of fly tipping. Some of that is also linked to businesses that potentially businesses exactly that potentially do not want to pay for disposal, and it's really difficult to engage in that respect. But we do a lot of prevention in relation to working with residents, for example, in making them understand, the importance of having to work with the right businesses for clearance, etc. So we do have that sort of work happening. And that kind of awareness is really important because some residents might not even be aware that they're actually engaging with people that then go to fly tip. So that is happening. There is obviously another way as well that we are using to hopefully prevent, which is about once the enforcement team is successful in prosecuting, then we make clear that has been successful, and we make clear that we're trying to communicate this so that it's clear that we're not tolerating fly tipping and there are consequences for fly tipping. That's another mechanism that we're using for prevention, for example. It's not an easy thing to do in terms of prevention, but it is, and also the last thing that we're trying to do is also being strategic. So, for example, we are trying now to understand the level of fly tipping and the locations, the frequency, the effectiveness of the cameras that we're using, so that we are also trying to work more strategically, more clever in a way that we can be more effective on tackling the problem. So we're using different mechanisms to try and tackle this, but it's not an easy thing to do.
One of the things, I mean, we have had an area that was fly tipped a lot, Chad Lane, and and you did catch someone with CCTV, and they were fined. Unfortunately, I don't think the fine's anything like enough when you consider how much it costs to clear a fly tip. However, with the CCTV and one or two being caught, that area is not being used to fly tip in quite the same way. So they've chosen other areas, and they always tend to be people who don't live in the area.
Yeah.
So that makes it more difficult. You can tell local residents not to, and actually I think it's still not, people don't think of that when they have a house repair. And one of the things that my conference told me, and the things that does work, is that when you have a fly tip or anywhere, whether it's in town or if you put big sticking over saying this is criminal offence, just so that it reinforces people passing that actually this is not okay and they will be prosecuted if they're found. That's something that just makes people a little more cautious about not fly tipping, hopefully in my area, but any area come to that. So I just think there are things that you can do that make it, and I'm not sort of saying that will actually definitely reduce it, but it just make people more wary and perhaps think twice with that.
I haven't even thought about doing my own homemade sign for the dog poo hotspot one now. But yes, I think with all of this, it's very difficult to change people's behaviour and attitude. But I think that, so you've been to a conference recently on this, haven't you?
Yes.
And I think please feed your.
It was online.
Please feed your, or if there's a link to it that if it was recorded, please feed that into officers, and if we could maybe have an update or added in the review that you're doing, because clearly, I mean, this comes up every time.
Yes.
We're very interested in this. I'm going to, just because we've got verge hardening in playgrounds, and the local plan, and I don't want to keep us here too late, but I will, because I'm nice, I'm going to let you have one more question.
Quite important, this one, skip licences for DBC land, and skips being placed on DBC land. I don't know who to speak to about it, and it's becoming an issue in my ward.
I think it's licensing is with Mark Brooks, so potentially we need to ask him that question.
So we seem to have an issue with commercial waste as well being dumped into the skips, so it's not just residential.
Would you be happy to do that as a ward issue, case to Mark Brooks?
Yeah, sure.
But perhaps ask Mark to copy his answer to everyone. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. But a good question. Is that okay? I'm going to bring that part of the question to a close, because I know we have lots of questions about playgrounds and we have lots of questions about birch hardening. So Ian, you're a popular person today. Over to you.
This is just a really quick update to update the committee on where we are with the playground refurbishment programme, and just on the initial steps that we've been doing on work on verge hardening. So just a bit of background. So Decorum's got 52 sites across the borough. Within Clean, Safe and Green, we've got a team of 2 that work full-time, so they're qualified to a nationally recognised standard that ensures any work they do in terms of inspections and repairs is done to meet the British standards. That team inspects every playground across the borough at least once every 2 weeks, and then they undertake a more thorough quarterly inspection, and then all Decorum's playgrounds are independently inspected and risk assessed on an annual basis. So we've got quite a rigorous inspection regime in place. Background to the programme, so there are 9 sites within the current phase of work. So one's already been delivered, which was Tring Skate Park. Originally we had a funding of £500,000 from the council capital programme, but we were very fortunate in more than doubling that money with a further £610,000 from SIL. And it says that's allowed us to really at least double the budget for every playground within the programme. And it's going to deliver modern and challenging play facilities. So there's been lots of studies over the last couple of years that playgrounds have become too safe, for want of a better word, and children are becoming quite risk adverse. So a lot of play now is around, I suppose, controlled danger, for want of a better word. So we've invited tenders, so we've used the ESPO framework, and we had generally a good response from the market. There's 2 exceptions to that, which I'll go through in a minute, but that won't affect the overall playground. So the 8 sites that are due for refurbishment. So in the first phase, we've got Croft Meadow, Flaundon, Tower Hill and Woodall Farm. And then in the second, they will all, we hope, be completed in time for the summer holidays. If not, I'll make sure I'll have to go on an early summer holiday to deal with all the complaints that will come my way. And then post-summer holidays, we'll deliver the second phase at Apsley Lock, Durrance Hill, Miswell Lane and Warner's End Valley. So you'll notice the ones against Miswell Lane and Warner's End Valley. So we didn't get a good response to those. And the responses that we didn't meet the brief. So Rob is going to go back to the market quickly. And we think we've still got time to get them back, get them assessed, get them awarded, so we can still meet that September to October deadline. I knew it was going to get stuck because next one's some photos. Oh, we're on. There we go. So this is just a few examples that came back in terms of what will be delivered. And so, yeah, I'm aware from the comments that I received via Stefania last time that councillors are keen to have a much more input into this programme going forward. So it's something that I've done in previous jobs, Stefania's done in previous jobs. So we really want to, when we get to future phases of this, the playground programme, start involving yourselves and the community much more in doing that. So we need, obviously, if we're going to deliver more programme, we need to get more money. So we need to undertake a bit of a strategic review of play areas. and where we have them and demand to inform future programmes. We've got a half-written bid already to SIL, which we will refine and take back to start the next round of playground refurbishments. I said in the future we want this kind of thing to be engaged the local community much more and have more consultation with them as well. And we're also going to be doing some work with James and Sarah, or we've started doing some work around James and Sarah to ensure that play areas that are delivered as part of housing developments meet a minimum standard. So quite often housing developers, their idea of installing a playground is to stick a swing or a roundabout in the middle of a estate, which is pretty poor. So we want to say where they will come to the council for management and maintenance in the future that they meet a minimum standard for pieces of kit that are in them. So we are currently, we will, in terms of the present programme, we have written portfolio holder decision that will go to Councillor Bromham to sign off. And then we need to tell the successful contractors, we tell them, then there's a standstill period, and then we make the award. So that standstill period will end at the end of April, beginning of May. So we're on quite tight. So what we will do in the first phase, well, once that's ended, is we'll let all ward councillors that are affected have a view of the final design. There might be a small few tweaks we can make. We're not going to be able to have time to make wholesale changes, but I say going forward, we want to really make this kind of project much more engaging with yourselves and local councillors. And now on to verge hardening. So
before you carry on, I will, if anyone's got any immediate questions on that, Councillor Mitchell.
Are the play parks going to be made accessible? So a path, you know, because at the moment it's in the middle of grass and I have a wheelchair user who can't easily access it. Is that something we can?
I need to check, but again, for me personally, that should be something we're factoring into design. Going, I've been to several, and you can get to the playground, and as you say, you get into the playground. There's quite often a big muddy puddle, so it's something we need to start reviewing.
Just sort of linked to that, when you mentioned sill, is that the big sill pot rather than the individual ward pots?
Yes. Yeah.
So, because what I was just thinking is that if there was a need to link it, whether you could consult. I know your sill pot's not minimum, but that's an option. Councillor.
So I was just going to make a point about that because my last meeting I chaired the SIL funding committee. And we took the decision to award this funding for the playground. So I'm really looking forward to this project coming to fruition, Chair.
Thank you, and thank you to the SIL committee. I think because that's I think from what I understand from the priorities of this committee is that that's the sort of thing that we should be using SIL money for. So that's something I guess any of us that sit on that, might be me now, to take into account. Thank you. Any other questions on playgrounds? Yes.
Essentially also kind of on the accessibility issue, I presume because most of the newer playgrounds that come in are at least partially accessible for children with different disabilities. So I assume that that's been sort of taken into consideration going forward as well.
Yes, so play equipment should now generally be, or certainly most of it should be accessible. So, but yeah, that I think the onus is on Decorum to make sure getting to the playground is also accessible. It's not a lot of use having nice accessible play equipment, but if you can't get there, so yeah, certainly.
And that's something I think will come out from the liaison with the ward councillors. I think that's good. Yeah, there's a lot of goodwill here, so thank you for that. Councillor Mitchell.
I just had a concern about how we're going to protect this newer play equipment from vandalism and from the antisocial behaviour that I have quite a bit of in my ward. It'd be such a shame if we get this lovely new play park and then it's vandalised soon after.
I mean, I know vandalism happens from time to time. I'm not aware of it being a major.
It has been in Lower Warnes End Play Park.
So, is that the same one that's on there?
It's up, they're going to do upper, it's in Gade, it's called Warner's End, bit of a top one there, but yeah, so the lower one has definitely been repeatedly vandalised.
Well, I think that sounds like it's a conversation that the two of you should definitely
And we can
pick
pick
up
it with
outside the meeting. Yeah.
community safety as well, so, yeah, so.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Without further ado, we'll go on to verge hardening then.
So, yeah, verge hardening, this is definitely keeping my email inbox pretty hot at the minute. So we've lots of requests. So I counted up earlier, we've got 71 requests for verge hardening. So part of what this is seeking to do is give us a bit of a strategic framework and principles behind when we start looking at each of those schemes. And I'm going to start getting out and about to have a look at them just to get, so I've got an idea of them, of what they look like, what factors they are, and what we can seek to deliver. So, as I said, we're looking to develop a set of values and principles behind a policy, covering, for example, what we're trying to achieve, what sort of problems and locations does it cover, what's not covered. We want a checklist to identify whether a location is suitable for considering for verge hardening. So potential factors that we'll need to put in there is, as it says, levels of parking stress, potential extra spaces gained, existing use and amenity value. So I'm a parks person by background, so I don't want to lose vast areas of open space, and part of that where open space is affected, we will need to go through the planning process, the environmental impacts and the deliverability. And then we need to, I think this is probably the key bit, is look at prioritisation criteria. So how urgent, serious is the environment obstruction issue? I know a lot, Councillor Mitchell's raised a few schemes where there are concerns really for road safety because of the parking and some regular thing in correspondence. But what other spare spaces that are nearby, existing level of spaces per household, are there alternatives in the area? Do we have sites where we could look to deliver this rather than just verge hardening? And also, obviously, we need to set expectations in terms of the level of budget and the resources and the delivery timetable as well. It's probably slightly complicated because some of the verges we might want to harden may belong to Herts County Council, so there's some liaison we're going to need to do with them there. So I'd say we're working with some consultants from called Parking Perspective. So they put in there, I don't know if you can see it, I can circulate this presentation after, if not, so people can have a look, because my eyes are failing me as well. So, but there's several steps in there in terms of identifying the sites, and we'll put together a flow chart that goes with the policy that we can put on the website. So when people are putting schemes forward, we can do that. But I think what I'm keen to do, while we won't be able to deliver them all, is to go through this process as we get them in on an individual basis to say, yes, your scheme has met the threshold or not. Whereas at the minute, as I said, we've got a long list of people hanging on. So I want to get to a quicker process to go, yes, you've met the threshold, you go to the next stage, or no, you've not. We'll have to work with you in another way to do that. So, so next steps, obviously, today we're updating the scrutiny committee. We need to do a bit of work with Parking Perspective to confirm principles and factors. So not necessarily today, but I'll circulate this. Welcome to get feedback from this committee and other councillors that have contacted me. April, we want to get a draft document that will be presented to officers and portfolio holder, then update it, and we're looking by May to have a final draft document that we can present to councillors for adoption and moving forward.
Brilliant. Thank you for taking the time to do presentations on both of those.
Councillor, I've got 3 questions, all jumbling to get asked first. One is, I wasn't aware we were being asked to identify sites.
Okay.
2, what list did you start from? Did you start from the list that we had before?
Yes.
And thirdly, what's happened to schemes which have already been designed, all worked up and just waiting for DEVRA authorisation to happen?
So yes, I am working from your old list, or the old list that was there, so that's been added to. I'm not sure what's happened to the previous schemes that have got designed up. I will speak, thankfully, I believe the officer that dealt with them still works at the council, so yes, I'll go and speak to Joe at some point this week.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'll just send you the list that I'm aware of, just to make sure it's on the list of 71 you mentioned.
It sounds like people are sending them in, whether they know that they're allowed to or not. I know there's a big discussion in my own ward. Any other questions? Because I've got a question, Councillor.
Just a bit of expectation management. I mean, I would say since the bird hardening programme was last active, I think we've identified that there are some concerns and considerations about surface runoff, which weren't being addressed when it was last active, and that may well mean that some schemes which are on the list now, possibly even design schemes, need to be assessed on that basis.
Absolutely, Chair. When we started the scheme 12 years ago, we had pretty similar criteria in terms of determining schemes, and runoff was one of them. But there are other issues. It's not just parking stress, but that obviously is the main driver of it, because at one location now in Ward, there is a civil order problem as a result of it.
Sorry, it's not funny.
I agree, Chair. So yeah, I really look forward to this happening, Chair.
There's a complete mud bath in my ward as well. So my question is really around SIL and ward SIL, and where at any point, if financing is a blocker, or even if it's not a blocker, but maybe it might be better use of the council's finances if the ward councillors could put forward their
parish councils, Chair.
Parish councils, yeah. Because again, I'm not sort of going ward, but I know the 3 councillors in my ward. The place that we've identified, we'd like to use that for ourselves. So we can obviously put that in as a SIL request, but I think if there's some kind of, maybe just consider how we can dovetail that with the ward SIL process would be good, and help us councillors work better with you on that. Councillor Whiteley.
Yeah, it's just about ease of access for section 106 and SIL money. So for example, when these monies are allocated because of planning considerations, so it gets allocated to a certain ward and so on. It's quite good. The process of accessing those monies, it seems to be quite sort of tortuous. It's not something that you see in general advice to councillors, and I think it would be useful, particularly because we've got the new intake for them, and also for for people like me. I'm scratching my head thinking, actually, which
just before I bring in the officer, I'm just going to give my take on the training. So we did have training, and only about 5 people turned up, I think, or not very many people turned up. So there was training recently. I go on a little journey on the training. So I start really positive. Oh, you could do this with SIL, you could do this, you could do this, and then about 3/4 of the way through, because a lot of the things that one might want to spend SIL money on, birch hardening not included particularly, but you then have the maintenance. If anything like a bench or something needs maintenance, it doesn't come in. So we definitely need some help in terms of SIL, but that was just my take on the training. I thought I'd just give that flavour before.
Sure, yeah, thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Chair. I mean, there is some guidance both to parish councils and to ward members. I mean, perhaps what we was going to suggest to Sarah and the team is we can just perhaps get that circulated via Layla to the committee, Chair. So, and we do keep it up to date as well. We do also keep the ward and parish amounts up to date as well. And I can't remember if that's a 3 or a 6 monthly period, but again, we can keep that refreshed so that members know, or members in parished areas can know what the locality holds.
I mean, if you've got a list of recent successful SIL applications, so there might be the odd ward councillor who's gone through it, that some of us who haven't could then maybe speak to them and say, how did you do it? Councillor Whiteley, sorry, Councillor Thomas.
If a parish council the parish doesn't receive very much SIL money. Can they apply for any of the SIL that's held centrally?
In theory, yes. We've just to add to this, Chair, we have got some outstanding SIL applications, and they need to come back to Cabinet after going through these. So Councillor Anderson for the SIL committee, or it's full-time infrastructure advisory group. But yes, you can do that. SIL can be pooled as well, so other areas can if they want to. It's probably best just to understand what you want to actually achieve. There is a review going on about how we manage SIL at the moment, Chair, but we're discussing that with Councillor Wilkie, and then it will come back through Cabinet, right, not until after the local elections in May.
I think it's probably just worth clarifying that I think we might be talking about two things at the same point, which is the core SIL, which is very much the infrastructure advisory group, and allocating that based on strategic priorities for infrastructure. And then there is the neighbourhood SIL, which is very different and varies substantially in terms of pots of money across different neighbourhood centres. There was a presentation by Emma Cooper within the infrastructure team in January, which was virtually and was kind of well attended. There may well have been previous ones that were quite low attendance. I will put the presentation as a PDF, and we will send out the amounts again. I'm not saying that it then strikes as being easy, because you're right, if it's about a bench, etc. I don't know where you've got to, but neighbourhood SIL doesn't have as many tick boxes to kind of go through, because it is a neighbourhood kind of pot. So it's then that core SIL very much is around what are those strategic infrastructure items.
So is it about strategic infrastructure?
Absolutely right. And then any SIL or any town and parish council money, as a lot of kind of town councils work, you can make your bids forward to that kind of parish town council meeting monthly. It's in their gift, it's in their governance, it's their pot of money. As officers from Dacorum Borough Council, we have no control as to whether they would say yes, no, or how they kind of link to that. So I think there's probably three things that we're talking about at once. So I just wanted to clarify the different areas.
Yeah. But there is still a maintenance question over, if you build something,
there absolutely is, yeah.
Which yeah.
Very briefly, Chair, while Councillor Timmis may not look at it as an opportunity, of course, with the Hemel Gardens Community Project, parishes she represents could become one of the most wealthy parish councils in the country overnight.
Yeah, that's Great Gaston, and I'm also thinking of Flanston and Market.
But that's just
that's true, yes, I know.
Okay, so start getting the shopping lists ready. Okay.
It's interesting, Chair, actually, when the neighbourhood proportion of SIL was brought in, I think it was by looking at Councillor Anderson, it was the planning minister, Nick Bowles, at the MP at the time, wasn't it, when it was there to actually incentivise communities to embrace that, because you get some money back effectively. If you've got a neighbourhood plan as well, you get a bit more. But there we are. You only get the money if you have the development.
So there are still quite a few. Not everyone's wealthy, but there are. My own ward has a big pot, and I'm struggling to do it anyway. And I know that the town ward is looking to do things as well. But thank you very much. Very, very helpful. And if we can link the SIL for certain areas, small pocket areas, with bird charging, then that might help push forward some projects and take the pressure off elsewhere.
So can I specify as well that Ian is working at the moment with the consultants to finalise the actual methodology. So the methodologies that we have shown tonight is just an initial kind of thinking. I think that then we need to finalise that, and we need to obviously embed that. So I just want to make sure that the presentation that you've received is just like a first.
Particularly if you're going to share it around, that we know that it's just a.
It shouldn't be shared outside this meeting, because it's not. It's still a draft.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell.
It's kind of linked to bird hardening, but it's to do with commercial vehicles. So there's an increasing number of commercial vehicles parked in the neighbourhoods and in residential bays due to depots closing down and workers having to take their vans home. And obviously the vans are big compared to the size of a car. They're taking up a lot more space. In areas such as Gade, we've got a high percentage of blue-collar workers. So we've got a lot of commercial vehicles. So I'm having residents complaining and saying, can we come up with a scheme where only cars can park in the bays that are outside our houses? Now, I know that the residents, the commercial vehicle owners, are actually residents as well, So it's quite a complex matter, but it's becoming an increasing problem. And I think it's something we should really be thinking about, especially once we put new bays in through the verge hardening programme. We don't just want them taken up by all of these commercial vehicles. And I'm not anti-commercial vehicles at all, and I know they've got to park somewhere, but we've got this really difficult balancing act at the moment with residents who have cars and people are bringing their commercial vehicles, which are huge, you know, in some cases, home, and they're affecting visibility on the corner of streets as well where they're parking.
It's,
I don't know.
it's a long-standing issue. It comes up a lot. I think a lot of us, our ward post boxes
Been
full
brought
of
up a
it.
few times, yeah.
What we can do about it, I think it's quite limited. But who is the right person? Who is it? It's not really.
Probably me getting fired. I mean, if I can speak to Dan, who's the parking services manager. The issue for Dan is normally he can only send an enforcement officer where there's a traffic regulation order to enforce again. If not, sometimes it's the police, but they're normally quite reluctant to get involved in parking issues.
But often these vans are parked legally. They're just taking up the space. But I'm not sure there is anything that we can do if it's a common issue. And I just sort of because I think generally we go to Dan and it's like nothing we can do. No. And we have to go back to the residents and say there's nothing we can do. So I think this is probably one, again, a ward issue outside of here, but you're not alone. I think all of us have this issue in our wards in different places. Okay. I don't know if anybody else has anything.
No, it's cropped up a few times over the years, Chair, and it's very hard. The traffic road order can't differentiate between different kinds of vehicles, even if you could afford TRO.
I don't think there's a legal, there isn't a legal mechanism to say that commercial versus what's a commercial van. I use my car for my business, but it is a car, you know.
Yeah, we struggled with these kind of issues quite a lot and trying to get any action. But one issue we had was 7.5 tonne weight restricted area, and you had big lorries actually driving in there and parking. So obviously they violated the restriction, but because they're not actually moving, the police won't do anything about it. So it's a problem that we haven't really managed to resolve, and these big lorries are damaging the pavements and the curbs and things as well.
Right, we've got at least two more meaty-ish things on the agenda, so I'm going to propose that we move on if that's all right. But thank you so much. And just as a general point, those presentations, brief presentations, the Environment Agency one and these two, I found them very helpful. I think, and I think we had asked for them, so I really appreciate that responsiveness. So thank you, and for staying later too. I think it covering us onto one of my favourite topics, which is drinking in public. The alcohol-related public space protection orders. So, at which stage is this? What if anything, are we able to do with this? Comment. Suggest changes.
So we are at a stage where we've done the consultation. We're asking for an extension. We think an extension is a good idea. I don't know if councillors are aware of public space protection order, but under the Antisocial Behaviour Crime and Policing Act, councils are allowed to prepare a public space protection order in order to have a better enforcement and better control of issues on neighbourhoods. We do have related to alcohol 6 of them, which are in Hemel, Hampstead, Bovingdon, Boxmoor, Apsley and Frogmore End. And what we're simply asking is that we think is a good idea to extend them because...
and extend them in time, not...
Thanks, Steph. Just to add to that, there's actually been very few prosecutions under the alcohol consumption public space protection order. But the reason that I said it was, we should definitely review it is because it is an extra tool in the toolbox. If someone starts organising a rave in Gatebridge Park or something, it's a tool that could be used by the police or any other enforcement officers. So
I think the police is a red herring because the police have the powers already. Let's not say that.
So
PSPO gives people who aren't police powers to do things that the police have powers to do. Is my understanding.
I think it gives the police additional powers as well. The police can issue can act on that.
I have a lawyer who has his hand up, so I'm going to defer to you. So I think it was Councillor Gale, Councillor Whitelow, then Councillor Santa Maria, in that order.
Yes, just to check, what exactly is the prohibition? And I think the chair was just asking the question I'm about to ask, just to confirm. This is an extension in the time dimension. It's not an extension in area or substance. It's simply just renewing for another period, exactly the same as we had. I thought that was the case, but I would be interested to know the exact word, what exactly is prohibited.
Drinking alcohol in public, isn't it? You're not allowed to drink.
Is the consumption of alcohol. Yeah, in specific areas that are actually in the appendix.
So if you're having a picnic in Gadebridge Park, you can't have a bottle of wine, and I should have declared an interest because I sell wine. So someone can't buy a bottle of wine from my shop in the old town and take it across
carry.
the park.
Is there open carry? Like to borrow the
I think this is a tool under the antisocial behaviour, crime and policing. So I think there are specific circumstances where this is applied, which is about the antisocial behaviour, not the picnic or anything like that. So,
but yeah, I think the wording of it says you can't drink.
No, I know that. I mean, this is quite common. I've had this in previous authorities where the actual extent is correct. That
I should just declare I'm very sceptical of these, but I'm one person and I shouldn't let that prejudice.
I'm just saying it would be helpful just to see the exact text of the prohibition, that's all.
It's on the public website.
Right.
I can ask Mark to distribute it.
We should share it. Well, that's the
share it.
Yeah,
I can ask Mark to share it.
I mean, we're being asked to look at whether the prohibition should be extended. It'd be just helpful to see the wording of the prohibition in the that's all.
It says alcohol consumption that leads to public disorder, but I don't think it does. I think it just says you can't drink alcohol. And there's been questions in the past about under 18s, but under 18s are illegal to drink anyway, so why do you need to be?
I just remember being, at some point a long time ago, being stopped in the street when I just bought a bottle of wine I was taking home. And the bottle of wine was not in a bag, so I got stopped by the police just carrying a bottle of wine. It was closed, it was just a bottle of wine, it wasn't in the bag. It's not that sort of thing. It's drinking, the drinking of the alcohol.
It is.
I think the exact wording was certainly how. I have got your hand, Councillor Anderson, but I'm just going to go through the order if I would. So Councillor Whitelow, you're next.
Yeah, it's actually a similar vein to Councillor. Sorry, Jonathan. I can't remember your name.
That's right, Jonathan's fine.
Jonathan.
I'm very happy.
It was just actually. I thought the report was very, very brief. I mean, I looked at this and it said Appendix B, and I thought I was going to find out what the responses had been to what was called a light touch consultation. There's nothing there about who responded to the consultation, or what were the concerns raised in it, if any, how many people were involved. I saw that it was, Councillor Bromham mentioned that there have been very few prosecutions, about 20 or 22, and I've got no problem at all with extending it, and I understand what the purpose of the report is. But I would have liked that supporting information, because it comes back to a previous meeting. We are a scrutiny committee, and there's nothing in the report for us to scrutinise, to be quite honest. It's just an outline of the process that is involved. And I appreciate that if it had been the start of having the orders, then clearly there would have been a lot of discussion there. But I don't, I just felt that it was a very thin report. Unless, of course, it's been published elsewhere, and I haven't seen the responses.
I think you make a very good point, actually, that we are missing some information from here to scrutinise. Is that information available? I mean, I don't know if you know off the top of your head how many people replied, because that's sometimes.
So this is something that again Mark Brooks has asked me to present tonight, and right, I can ask him those details to then report back to you. But if you read the report, it just said that after the consultation, no complaints were received. So in effect, I think it's because effectively what we're asking to continue to do exactly what we've done before. So we're not really asking to change anything. We're just asking to continue to do exactly the same for a longer period of time. So there hasn't been obviously there's been no complaints as part of the consultation because really we're not asking any changes. We just feel that it's useful, and again, it's in the report why it's useful as well, is because we had some areas of some issues around the water garden areas where we had to work together with the police, and some of the issues were around drinking, and obviously this PSPO helped us to put some interventions in there. So again, we found it useful in those circumstances, and because again, even if it's not very frequent and we haven't got massive issues, it doesn't mean that actually, you know, we should not have in a tool that will allow us in future to do that.
No, that's really helpful, and that it's not sort of a new thing. But I think if we could, if it's possible for Mark to let us know how many people are applying, then at least when we're thinking about what our response to this is and our view of it is it 3 people that said it's fine, or was it 25? Was it 1,000? I think that's just helpful. Is that what would that be helpful?
That's the gist of what I'm saying. You know, so and I appreciate your response, but it doesn't. You're talking about information that you've got that you're now talking about to us, but we haven't got the full flavour of that, as the chairman said. How many? And I do appreciate it was a phrase we used was a light touch consultation, but equally we should have known what was being asked and what kind of responses were.
That's good feedback for consultations in the future. If you could feedback that back to Mark Brooks, that would be really helpful. Thank you. So I've got Councillor Santa Maria, Councillor Anderson, and then I'll go to Councillor Patterson.
I was basically going to ask what Johnny asked about is it extending
So
across
we have the
time
words
rather than-
of the
I
time.
found the words, but if you've got them, that's fine. But yeah.
So the words are, you're not allowed to consume intoxicating liquor in a public place and acting in a manner that is causing or is likely to cause alarm or distress. So I don't know if that's a hard and, so you have to be doing both, or whether I know it says and, but I don't know if it's interpreted. So you can drink intoxicating liquor as long as you don't do the and.
That's my interpretation as well.
And being in possession of an open vessel
Well,
of
this is why it's
intoxicating
helpful to see
liquor
the
in a
wording.
public place. So those two things are contradictory, but anyway, that's what it says. And people understand.
I think this is quite important.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're being asked to approve a PSPO that is ambiguous, we need certainty as to what you're not allowed to do. That's all.
Well, I think we can't change. I'm guessing if we've done the consultation, we can't then go change the wording because then you'd have to reconsult because this is an extension. So this is a very good conversation, probably that we should have next door. Except I drove today, which is not good. Anyway, sorry. Thank you. Back to my list of people. So Councillor Santa Maria, you heard your first. So I've got Councillor Anderson, then Councillor Patterson, and then Councillor Walker.
I might be able to help out here. When we've done the public space protection orders, they are very carefully and precisely defined. There is no ambiguity over the definition. The key point here is enforcement, which is the question I wanted to ask, and I'll come back to in a minute. When we started the public space protection orders, I remember vividly I was chairing this committee and we had members of staff passionately appealing to us to do it because it enabled them to do their jobs, particularly Rob Cassidy in looking after our parks and open spaces. He actually nearly lost control that night because he was so desperate to have it as a tool to be able to do what it is we asked our staff to do. So that's always been very important. When we started, particularly the alcohol PSPO, this issue about having a glass of wine in Gadebridge Park whilst you're having a picnic was raised at the time, and it was clearly discussed, and through the definition of the order itself, and more importantly, how it's enforced, which is the really key issue. Again, I'm coming back to my question in a moment. It would never be used to go after people having picnics in the park. It would go after the unfortunates with a view to helping them in the long run, who are sitting on park benches having Heineken special brew, for example. Yeah, those are the people we need.
I understand that, but that's not what the PSPO says.
No, but you see, this is the point. The PSPO,
I'd read that and go, I can't have a glass of wine.
is defined so that then
Okay,
council.
I agree, your intervention is helpful, but I'm just going to cut you down for a question.
It's defined to allow the council to do the cases that it wants to go, to go after. My question was basically, was there a low number of cases because the council hasn't been enforcing it? And that's the concern that worries me, because it's down to the council to determine how much enforcement it does. And what I'd be looking for is some comfort that it is actually being enforced sensibly for the purposes that we set
It's a
it up.
mixture of things. Is it enough of a deterrent, and is it being enforced?
And that's my key issue. And my observation was simply to say I do support the extension of them. I'm a big believer in them, and I think the council needs them to carry out its function.
I guess part of it will be around police reports and ward reports, and I haven't heard ward councillors coming to this committee, for example, saying we're not getting, the PSPOs are not being enforced because I'm getting my post bag is full of people with issues. But we're probably not going to get to that point at the moment. But I think it's a good point to maybe put back to Mark for thinking about, which is this a question of enforcement, a lack of enforcement, or is it a question that the deterrent of PSPO is working?
And Chair, it's also an issue, I think, of training, because we've had them for so long. I think it's just people have got used to them, and all Mark was doing was a standard light touch consultation. Obviously, we've got a large intake of new members, and maybe it's a training issue.
Well, we can maybe look at that for the future. But okay, thank you very much. Councillor Patterson, you were next. Then I've got Councillor Walker, and then I've got Councillor Gade.
Okay, well, I was just going
We can come back to, honestly.
We'll come back, we're going to circle back then.
Yeah, we can circle back. Mr. Councillor Patterson, be very patient.
It's not clear at the moment whether you're extending them to any new geographical areas. You're not.
No,
so Tring is safe, is it? You don't have any drinkers there.
The geographical areas, we're not changing the geographical area. We're not changing. We're not changing the actual definitions. We're not changing anything apart from the length of the current PSPOs, which are expiring now. And I think
I'll be intrigued to know more about the history, but that's for another time.
That is for another time. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Thank you very much. Councillor Walker.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair. I was only really coming back on what's been said already, and that is, how on earth do you enforce this? I mean, in Bovingdon, I'm not aware that which I am councillor for, that we're openly drinking on a regular basis in open areas. But we rarely have any police visits in Bovingdon. We rarely have any PSPOs visitors. So, and I'm a resident there, and this is the first time I actually realised that Bovingdon is in this. I mean, it seems to me we're all those in the room, but the residents, we haven't got a clue.
I'm getting a bit of deja vu because you turned the tables and we were saying the same thing when the PSPOs were up for grabs. But you're all very valid points. All valid points.
And you know, if I was to come out of Tesco's or off licence Bovingdon High Street and walk down holding a bottle of wine that's open, I would not have realised until tonight that I'm breaking the law.
Yeah. Well, you're not. Yeah. It's not the law, but yeah.
Well, breaking what's written
the
here,
order.
you know,
The letter of the order, but not the spirit, because the spirit means actually we're causing a disturbance.
Yeah, very good, very good, very good, very good.
Sorry, I beat you.
Hang on.
I beat. Oh, sorry, I apologise. I've taken your crown.
You hear what I'm
Thank
saying?
you. Yeah. This is definitely pardon the pun. This is definitely a conversation to have down the pub. Councillor Gale.
Shake your drove.
After Councillor Gale, I'm going to bring this to a close because we've got the local plan which we want to get to. We also want to get to bed, not too late.
I just wanted to say that very respectfully, I disagree with Councillor Anderson about the principle that it's just a question of enforcement. It has to be, as far as I'm concerned, it has to be very tight worded so that we don't get the idea of some officer making some judgment about, oh, do these guys look okay? Yeah, I think these guys look okay, I'm going to leave them alone. Or do these guys look a bit rowdy? I think it has to be very, very clear what the law is so that you don't get the personal prejudices, unconscious bias of the officers or of anybody enforcing, of the enforcers, to take a judgment and enforce it against some people, but not against others.
Chair, I can answer that. I think it's important to put this into context in a sense that these PSPOs are there as tools, like Councillor Bromon has just said, We're not having officers patrolling, looking for people drinking and then deciding whether that's an issue or not an issue. This is a tool when, for example, just to give you the example of the water garden, we had issues that were raised to us to say, you know, there is a problem there is a problem that is persisting, what can you do? That's when the PSPO is used and is useful, because then we can start working with the police, and we can start working with our contractors, district enforcement, and our staff as well on site to get the presence on site, to get the interventions if we need. And if we need to, we always need to be proportionate on enforcement. And we need to make sure that we just have a range of tools that then allow us to choose the right tools for the right intervention. And this is only one of them. So the definition allows us as well to have that flexibility, because there is that end to make sure that, you know, people who wants to have a nice time in the park and having a picnic, it's not a problem, because, you know, this is not what it is about. This is about having a tool amongst a lot of other tools that allow us to intervene when we need it. That's all.
That's very logic. It makes sense, but on the face of it, it looks like you can't do it as a law-abiding requirement. Okay. I'm not a lawyer, and I would love to just carry on this conversation, but I'm going to be a good chair, and I'm not going to do that, because we have plenty of other stuff on the agenda. Thank you for persevering through that. I'm clear we all have different views on it, and it is a bit it does kind of split. So it'll be interesting when it goes to cabinet and then comes to does it have to be ratified at council? I guess it's just one of those ones that we generally just go
Cabinet, probably.
Cabinet. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Right. Moving on. I've got an agenda on a different page, so bear with me. We have got. We haven't got the rerouting. The local plan regulation 18 feedback. Thank you both of you for. I guess you're both going to be involved in this for waiting. So over to you.
Yeah. Thank you. So you have a report which just sets out the kind of key aspects from the Regulation 18 report and the consultation. And then you have an appendix 1, which goes through in more detail the methods of the engagement between pages 5 and 9. And then pages 15 onwards, it then goes through a lot of the consultation responses that we had. So what we are now working on, just to be clear, is really kind of analysing the consultation responses we've received, thinking about them in the round, how they all work independently with each other, and then we'll have a kind of full response to that. So the full response is not presented this evening. The recommendation this evening is to note this report and to note the results of how the consultation went. So just to kind of pull out a few key parts of the report, paragraph 1.4, you can see there that we've got 1,356 total responses. So that's from residents, businesses, organisations and national bodies. And then you can see in terms of 1.7, paragraph 1.7 kind of really sets out those initial findings, and that we will kind of then take those next steps to move forward with the local plan. So at paragraph 2.4 of the covering report, this is the first time that we've collected demographic data. So there's a couple of items there that have been pulled through just for your reference. So 55% of the respondents decided not to share their demographic data. But then as you go through, you can see within the covering report and indeed within the appendix, the age demographic, and we can see there that actually in terms of engaging with the youth and the kind of people who were born after 2000 and any people born after 1990, it was much harder to engage with that section of the population. So that's definitely a learning point, continuous learning point really with all consultations going forward. So we had laid out and we had kind of shared the consultation with schools, and we'd attended the face-to-face sessions with the youth councils and at the Christmas fairs. So it's just really understanding how we gather that feedback outside of that engagement HQ platform going forward. In terms of gender demographic, you can see that about 50% of men responded and 48% with women, 0.5% reporting as non-binary or transgender, and the rest prefer not to say. Ethnicity, you've got about 89% as white English, Welsh, Scottish, Northern Irish or British, and disability, around 87% of individuals reported with no disability. So this is our first tranche of gaining demographic data, so now that's going to be really helpful to be able to compare against kind of going forward.
Sorry to interrupt, but would you, when you're presenting that, just compare to, because if decorum's 90% white, then that kind of would make sense. If it's not 90% white, then we're clearly missing some people. So just as a reflection on that. Apologies to everyone for me jumping in.
No problem, thank you. And then in terms of going through and, the responses that we received, so you can see that we would expect in terms of the hierarchy of our size of settlements, so our largest town, Hemel Hempstead, 41% of responses came from Hemel Hempstead. Second largest town, Berkhamsted, 36% came. Tring, third largest settlement, 21% came from Tring. And then you've then got a bracket there around 17% of total responses across the whole of Dacorum, etc. So that's as we would expect in terms of the larger kind of settlements had the larger proportion of responses. And then you can see in terms of paragraph 2.6 shows that 37% of respondents support the plan, which is a positive. And at paragraph 2.10, we've asked a question, which I think was a really helpful question to kind of articulate, which is around infrastructure and kind of thinking about what the top 5 priorities overall. So we have that real clear kind of position around healthcare, green space and play facilities, road network, public transport and community facilities. So a lot of you won't be alarmed by that, but it's just really good to get it in that kind of very clear kind of format. The report goes through and shows that people were satisfied and actually very complimentary about the new platform that we use, which is the engagement headquarters. And you know yourselves that that's now our corporate Dacorum platform. So we've used that for other consultations since then. And then just interestingly, the report shows how people have found out about the consultation. So social media, email and word of mouth being the top 3. And then also kind of parish council kind of dissemination as well. So just a thank you really to everybody for helping to really disseminate that kind of local plan consultation. The main themes at paragraph 2.18, we can see that the support was highest from populations who responded in Tring and Berkhamsted, and the objections were highest from populations in Hemel Hempstead. There was a concern about loss of green spaces. There was consideration of whether infrastructure would be sufficient. There was a welcome reduction of greenbelt, but then still a concern about using greenbelt, the greenbelt sites that are remaining in the local plan. And then there was also a concern about brownfield land and the construction within brownfield land and relationship with infrastructure. And again, you'd expect tensions like that throughout any local plan kind of consultation because you have different interests from different communities across the area. Just a general feedback around infrastructure. And then we have housing and planning professionals also responding to this local plan, asking around the total housing number that we are promoting in terms of against that standard method, and also about any sites that we have not included in the local plan and why not, and wanting to promote those sites. So we've got more detailed feedback, page 15 onwards of the appendix. So the next steps that we're taking is to consider the feedback in detail. So many of the issues raised kind of interrelate within each other. So infrastructure, sites, site-specific feedback, etc. We're continuing the dialogue with statutory consultees, and we will consider if any further evidence needs to be required. We're also wrapping up evidence pieces within the team within strategic planning. We are reviewing and updating the policies that we have, and you may well remember if you look back to the previous consultation, there was quite a lot of drafting of policies at that point. And we are commencing the task and finish group. Tomorrow is our first meeting at 2 o'clock. So we will then have a full response to this kind of consultation from the Regulation 18 as we kind of go through and have that full response to what the Regulation 19 plan will look like. And in terms of taking that forward, we're still targeting towards our consultation dates in the autumn of 2024. So you will see that before the autumn. And we obviously have a big workaround, which will be the general election, any period around that. So that's the only unknown that I'm working with at the moment. So I have James Rathwell here, who's our corporate graduate, and Keely Mitchell, lead for strategic planning officer. And both of them have been really instrumental into this. So thank you for their work and the rest of the team work. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you for a very comprehensive run through of quite a lot of information in a short time. Councillor Jess.
I notice it's quite a much smaller number. People responded compared with the first consultation. Do you have any ideas why that would be? Is it because everyone's fed up with consultation? Or is it because people were not so bothered because things have changed as they would see it for the better?
I think
You know why?
there will be multiple reasons. I think it's fair to say that the 2020 consultation was held in lockdown and it was virtually, so maybe people had more time and capacity. It had more greenbelt sites, maybe that could have affected a larger population. It then, looking back to the previous one, the issues and options of 2017, you had 2,300 compared to this 1,300. So I think it's very hard to be able to pinpoint exactly what the reasons are. And we did do a piece of work, and you will see in the report a table at 2.20, paragraph 2.20, which goes to have a look at what the consultation response is compared to the local planning authorities' population. So we have just checked your exact point with Buckinghamshire, with Central Bedfordshire, Hertsmere, St Albans, Three Rivers, and you can see it tends to be 0.5% of the population will engage with local plan making. It varies in the table considerably. I think
Is that significant? Is it significant enough in terms of?
Yes, comparing ourselves to all the other local authorities, so you can see Buckinghamshire, they had a 0.6 response. Central Bedfordshire had a 0.3% of their total population. They then had
It's very small.
It is, but actually local plans, they are a interesting piece to engage with, because you may well presume that actually it is more landowners and people who own their own homes that engage, as opposed to people who rent, which should not be the case, but actually can tend to be the case, and would be an interesting question to ask actually in a consultation if we ever could. It then also tends to be the case that if it's a really controversial proposal, more people will comment and object. It also tends to be the case in terms of whether you have a transient population or not kind of going through. So there's different matters, but Hertsmere is 1.9%. They did have a large response, with the largest in the table, which is 5.8%. And I know that was, that they've now kind of changed their position on that local plan. So potentially that was quite a controversial one. So I'm satisfied as to where we are. And I think, Keely, you've looked back to previous consultations, because we did use a very different platform. So there's a bit of a technical piece behind it, but there's a lot more people that came to the platform and reviewed it. I think the figure's around 17,000 that actually looked at the local plan website. Only 1,300 finished and completed.
So more looked and maybe started it, but didn't finish it.
Or just looked at it and said, I'm okay, thank you, I just don't want to respond.
So you know that they looked at it.
You can see on the analytics, yeah. We do have paragraph 219 of the report. We did also, just on your point on settlements, I wouldn't want to suggest why people may or may not have commented, but we have done a comparison of the amount of people commented per settlement, and in 2020, Tring received 1,667 comments. This time received 292. Whereas actually we received more comments for Hemel Hempstead than we did previously. 2020 it was 387, this time it's 562, so that is in there. So I think
the comments are following where the bigger developments are in the plan. It looks like, yeah, like you're saying, because Tring was left untouched this time, or not untouched, but less impact. So that's an interesting thing to see from there. Unfortunately, the portfolio holder, Sharon Wilkie's not here today, but I'm guessing she would have said something a little bit like that, because that's what came through in the pre-consultation. Any other comments, Councillor Gade?
Yeah, I mean, it's along a similar line. Do we have any idea why there was more engagement in general from Berkhamsted and Tring than there is from Hemel Hempstead?
In the previous round of consultation?
Well, I mean, proportionately. Yeah.
Well, proportionately, we're much happier now that it's gone back into where you'd expect the larger populations to have a larger response rate. And I think, as you can see in that table, when you have the previous emerging strategy for growth compared to our updated one, 9% of the total respondents were from Hemel Hempstead. This time it's 42%. So previously, Berkhamsted 36%, still 36%, 41% in Tring, 22%. I imagine it is to do with what's in the content of the local plan, and I'm much happier that more people have engaged across Hemel Hempstead. I'd like to be able to say as well that the way we engaged really helped in terms of going out to the Christmas events and light switched on. I think we really engaged with a new spectrum of the community. I think a lot of those people that we spoke to, so there was around 400 people that we might have kind of, passed through at all these kind of different light events and light switch-ons. I don't think a lot of them converted to then going home to actually responding to the consultation, but they certainly have now heard about a local plan and, would have been able to kind of feel like they've had that opportunity and quite a lot talked around the maps kind of with us. So I would hope that it's the way that we've engaged. It's very hard to be able to articulate and tell you for definite that because we did this, it's equaled that.
On the priorities, did they have so paragraph 2.10, did they have, I can't remember what, from when I looked at it, were those things there that they could put in order?
Yes, yeah, they were.
Because it's not, I don't know, if it is in here, I've missed it, but I'm not sure if somebody saying in Hemel was unhappy with the amount of development because they didn't want it in their back garden, or whether they weren't happy with the development because there isn't a hospital to support them. So I don't know if that's one step too far in the analysis to connect those things.
There was a selection of questions and quite a lot of them were qualitative so that you could actually have a free text box and say exactly your point. It was really important to pick some that were quantitative so that we can actually really say, here is a kind of tick box and that we can kind of capture that evidence, because otherwise we are having to analyse text consistently and it does become kind of quite challenging. So this is a quantitative question, very much a drop box, etc. And then the qualitative of exactly your point as to the reason why they may have objected would have come through throughout that three texts.
Will that be picked up in the more detailed stage?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because I think that's important for us for us and the wider group of councillors when we're looking at this, because and also because I know that I think Councillor Wilkie would have wanted me to say this. We all know the importance of having a local plan, and that if we don't have a local plan, it's far worse for decorum than if we do have a plan. But the plan still needs to be right. Any other comments on this stage of the consultation, Councillor Patterson?
How many meetings of task and finish do you anticipate?
Just bear with me. I have 9 separate topics happening over 7 meetings at the moment. That may be subject to change. The first meeting will be tomorrow, and that will very much pull us together and talk about diaries, talk about structure, talk about how I envisage it happening, and then having that feedback. So we may need an extra meeting, but at the moment we've got 7 timetabled in, and we've got those 9 separate topics to work through.
Sorry, Councillor Gale, I was just looking to see who's on the committee, Councillor Gale.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an awful lot of feedback to deal with. I obviously new to this. Just want to know how is the feedback going to be plugged into the next stage? You say you've got 9 different topics and 9 meetings. Is it as simple as taking each, grouping the feedback into families and then discussing one topic in each meeting, and then how much room is there to change it? How much modification is expected? In particular, I noticed on page 118, 119, there's quite a lot on the Market Square. And is that likely to, how much leeway have you got to change in response to these comments?
And this is why we're not in a full position at this point, because we need to take all of these in a level of detail. In terms of your point as to how are we going to do this, we're talking about 2 different work streams there. One will be the task and finish. We won't expect them to go through and analyse all this with us. That's very much our role as officers. It's us kind of picking through and saying these are 9 of the key topics, these are the evidence, and this is how we're formulating it into a policy, and including that kind of conversation with members so that we will kind of be able to kind of help curate that conversation. The second work stream around actually taking this kind of level of detail is very much what the team's working on at the moment, and will continue to up until that next version of the local plan. To take your example just about the Market Square, that's been allocated in our previous core strategy. So actually we may well have some kind of concerns from some residents or other organisations, but it's actually really reflecting on the context and the positioning such as planning history, any previous planning permissions granted or any previous designations. So hence why it's never going to be a really easy, straight answer to a lot of the issues raised, and a lot of them are interdependencies. So as we work through, we may well find that there is some changes and some need to kind of shape the plan. That will need to take a lot of time, and it will need to take a lot of consideration. I don't know what they might be at the moment, and I wouldn't want to envisage or start thinking about that, but that's very much what the team is working towards at the moment.
Chair, constitutionally, this is a task and finish group that's been set up by the portfolio holder, or is it by this committee?
By the scrutiny committee, yeah.
By this committee, in which case this committee should have actually had a paper to define what the group was going to do and the parameters under which it was going to work.
Yeah, that was included
So
in
that would answer the question.
And that was included in our previous report to the scrutiny before we went out to the Regulation 18 consultation. So that we had that task and finish in there. And I think the reason for it being a scrutiny task and finish is because then it can be that political makeup of the organisation, and then knowing that actually the task and finish group and the way the Constitution words things is very much this can be an informal group. It doesn't need to be minuted. I think it will be minuted, and it will be very much specialised out tomorrow with the rest of the task and finish group to be able to really be clear on the scope of that.
On that, I was sent the updated briefing note in February. Is it all right if that's circulated to the committee? Yeah. Is that right? Shall I send that to you now?
Sorry, I interrupted though. I don't know what your point was to the.
No, that was just purely to make the point, the constitutional point that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's a portfolio task and finish or a scrutiny committee task and finish. Is going to issue recommendations and views, and if the portfolio holder and the administration want to take them on board, they can, and if they don't, they don't. Simple as that, Chair.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just sending that to, as I had it up, I was just sending it to Lena to make sure we get it in good time. Any other questions on this so far? I'm assuming we'll get regular updates from how things are going with the task and finish group. And Councillor Anderson, I believe you're on it.
I am,
yes. I've just seen the list. And then the briefing note includes the people who are on it. So we'll get that.
Councillor Williams.
Yes. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Thank you very much to both of you for yes, sorry.
Just a point really. That particular topic is very important. It's tacked right onto the end of the agenda, and everybody's a bit tired and jaded. Something like that perhaps should be more to the front of the agenda. Verge hardening is very important, and they are very important, but they don't require quite the same level of not scrutiny, but intellectual attention. Let's put it that way.
You make a good point, and I do apologise that I've been very busy at my day job this week, so I hadn't looked because I was going to, because it wasn't until I came tonight that I moved the Environment Agency chap upwards. But
yeah,
James.
Thanks. I think it's a good point actually, because when the next big report I think that this committee will get really is once the task and finish group has done its work, really, and officers have worked on preparing a draft Regulation 19 plan, a firmer plan, having looked at all these issues. But so we need to think, I think, Chair, about how we're going to do that. It's the sort of thing that might merit its own meeting, really, not to scare purpose too much, but there will be an awful lot to get through, and that's all we're evidence, just as members have been saying, how residents and others were feeding back to us in the recent consultation.
Chair, that's something you can pick up if your chair and vice chair's meeting with senior officers. Yeah. And the other word of advice I'd give is that officers are very grateful if you can set up a system so that you alternate meetings, so that one meeting's environment, the next one's planning, and then the following one's environment. You can actually program things in that way, so you've only got one group of officers then then officers will be very grateful to you for it.
Well, I'm willing to take a steer. I don't think it's in my gift to design that. I'd rather take advice and speak to. So
It does depend, Chair, on.
It depends on the workload.
When you need to do that. I mean, that is a system that we used to operate when Councillor Anderson chaired the committee. It's not always possible, is it, I think, but as a
I would
rule,
have
it's not
expected if
bad,
it was a
yeah.
massive issue for officers coming that they would have said to me, please can we change it?
Long enough and you start.
I
can get away with it.
I don't have the as a volunteer, I don't have the capacity to do the thinking on that. But if someone else wants to do the thinking and advise me, then I will take a view. Thank you. And also on the scrutiny, on the actual sort of the quarterly updates, one could say we take them as read and we just take questions. We don't need the officers to present them. I think that's another way that we can do it, which would cut down some time. But that's me thinking off the top of my head with no consultation with yourselves. Councillor Timmis.
I just wondered whether you are putting out these results to the general public on the website. You are. So it would be this paper or something like this, or what?
Yes, I mean, this paper is available via our scrutiny website, and the Engagement HQ platform pretty much went live instantly.
The full text of the responses are already on the Engagement HQ platforms. That's if you were to read every single response, over 4,000 pages. That this summary will be published following the meeting.
And the other question I'd just like to say is that a lot of people, when you do a consultation, and maybe then, which you obviously got everybody's response out there, they like to know that you know, the general thing, we've got here, after all, 55% who disagree and only 37 who agree with it. So they want to see whether you've taken into account their points of disagreement, usually, as opposed to agreement. And I just hope that will be addressed.
Absolutely, and we're legally required to as well.
Yeah, so at the next stage, we'll publish a statement of consultation, which will set out how we've taken each comment into account.
Oh, that's brilliant, yes, that's good.
I think it is really important to know why they're saying no rather than just have the no's, because then that can be addressed, whether it's within the gift of the plan or not, etc., etc. Brilliant, thank you. I'm just so engrossed in our very interesting conversation. So I've just noticed it's 9:45, which is very late. You know, I don't like to keep us much later. We've got affordable housing SPD. Is there much that we need to say on that, or?
No, pretty much take the report as read. So you have the entire SPD in its content. It is a technical document. I'm happy to answer any questions outside of this. Just so you know, the kind of next steps onto this would be to take it to Cabinet after the PERDA period, so likely to be the 21st of May. And then it does need to go to full council, so we could do a consultation for a minimum of 4 weeks. So this document, if you have any thoughts on it or any kind of further changes, etc., it's not the final version. It is a document that we're going through the committee processes to be able to take out to a consultation. So it can change. The reason for having this consultation or this supplementary planning document is just that our kind of core strategy is quite silent on a lot of kind of more up-to-date changes from the government, for example, first homes. And we're really just wanting to kind of make sure that throughout planning applications, we can ensure affordable rent or rented affordable housing is genuinely affordable to household, as well as just kind of updating our guidance. So I think it will be welcomed by planners and, you know, by quite a lot in the sector, but we will find that out in terms of registered providers and others as we go through the consultation. And just in terms of to clarify the timetabling with our local plan, our current timetable for our local plan sees an adoption towards the end of 2026. And this supplementary planning document could see an adoption around 2024, subject to the PERDA of the general election. And then as we go forward in terms of both of those going successfully on timescales, this local plan would be absorbed into the new, this supplementary planning document would be absorbed into the new local plan. So it is an interim piece. There is a need for it, which is why we've gone ahead and kind of taken it forward. So after this evening, it will wait until after our election on the 3rd of May, and then it will go forward. It will go to a consultation.
I think for the purposes of this committee, then we do have time to having had that presentation of what it actually is.
Yeah.
I urge all members to read it and to pass through written comments. And I think if we, as in our usual protocol, if you could respond to, we don't have to send our questions to everyone, but if the answer could come to the whole committee, that would be great, thank you.
And if I could just introduce John Chapman so you can put a face to the name, who's been working on the affordable housing SPD.
Excellent, John. So it's good to have somebody that's really focused on this, and because there will undoubtedly be questions. We know from the planning committee, which I also sit on, for those who don't know, and from this committee, that we feel that I think generally the feeling is decorum has a responsibility to make sure that we make adequate provision for this. So
it will help certainly in controversial disputed cases like the gasworks in London Road, where there's been a long-running dispute about affordable housing level.
So brownfield sites where the viability and the cost of decontaminating the land and things like that. Yeah, thank you very much. Any quick comments on the work programme? I don't believe it's changed since the last meeting.
No, I do just need to note though that as Sarah quite rightly pointed out, June's meeting will include Q4 reports, not Q1. And hence the rest will also change. So I'll get that amended for.
And depending on how busy the agenda is for the next meeting, if it does tend to be quite busy again, maybe we can just take those Q4 reports as read, and we won't ask the officers to present them.
But do keep the quarterly reports moving forward, Chair, because there was a proposal a few years ago to ditch them from scrutiny committees altogether, which I resisted very strongly. I'm
sure I speak for one of our notable members who's unfortunately not able to be here, that he would say the same thing, I'm sure. Yes, Councillor Whaley.
Very briefly, update to the work programme. My old hobby horse, warning sounds on bikes and what have you. Another example, walking up Midland Hill last week after the garden communities thing. I'm undertaken on the inside by a guy on a bike. I was drifting a bit because I'm a bit wobbly up, and again nearly got hit by him. He had a hood on, couldn't see, he had no side vision whatsoever, and because he was behind me and with the traffic, you cannot hear anything coming up behind you. And so please, can we, as a matter of, if we are going to encourage people to use those shared, it is a shared cycle and pedestrian. It's the main plank down of that strategy down into the town. Please let's make it safe.
I think that has come up in the walking, the cycling consultation. I think that's the best place to. We want to go home. But I think that's the best place to take this. But because I will have a word with officers about where to put it in the consultation. But I think that's where it sits. It's not. I don't think it's a council enforcement issue, is it? Okay, well, we'll have to go away and think about this. Thank you for mentioning it again.
Remember, cycling public space protection order, Chair.
Unlikely.
I think there's lots of other. Basically, your point is well made. The question is where does it sit? But it's definitely it's like the lighting. If you want people to walk more, then they need to have well lit pathways, which was something that came up with the consultation. So let's put it into that just for managing purposes.
Chair, we'll need to report back on that consultation on the LC whip anyway. I think perhaps we'll have a conversation with our county colleagues really, because they're doing this right across the county. Not every district has a Nicky line, of course, or something like it, but it's not just that we're talking about.
I think if it can be
mentioned, the issue must come up elsewhere.
I think if it can be mentioned in the plan in terms of influencing or whatever the minimum the council can do up to what it should be doing. That would be good, I think. Thank you. Any other points? Anything? I don't have any AOB. Thank you very much for bearing with us. I still think we got through that in a reasonable amount of time given the volume of stuff that we had. So thank you to everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Good to have more.
Thank you.